What's up, people? I'm in Iowa City at the University of Iowa at the Papa John Business Building, having a discussion today, actually a black male retreat held by the Hubbard group, headed up by one of my good friends and mentors, Dr. Mike Hill. And today we're going to be talking about the new grinding, expanding your consciousness as your life's work. It's going to be a really interesting discussion. We have a whole series of discussions today with other experts from all over the United States to come here and give and impart some knowledge to the young black youth. So we're going to see how it goes, but it's a beautiful day in Iowa City. Check it out.
Black men had been turned into the aliens who were threatening the peace and tranquility of an otherwise safe and secure space. And we began to wonder as a group, how important is it for black men to have community? How important is it for black men to fellowship and to view one another not as adversaries or as indifferent strangers across a landscape, but rather to view one another as allies, to come to see one another as fellow travelers on a journey towards enlightenment, uplift, aspiration, and ultimately success. So that is the abstract crucible out of which the Hubbard Group was born. The desire to contemplate these issues, to contemplate them specifically within the context of the University of Iowa, but also to think about how our experiences as black men on this campus coincided with and dovetailed with the broader issues of black men in this nation and in this world. What I want to talk to you for a little bit about today is you can't knock the hustle, the game of intellectual engagement. Taken from a single that appears on Jay-Z's 1996 debut album, Reasonable Doubt, the title of my talk at first looks like the desperate attempt of an aging man to remain hip, fresh, relevant. In an environment where more than 200 scholarly monographs on some facet of hip-hop have been published in the past decade, there's a distinct possibility that every professor who seeks to establish a shorthand connection with a group of students, scholars, and brothers who are younger than him will think, why don't I exploit the hip-hop angle? After all, rap permeates this generation's mindset. It provides the sturdy yet mercurial scaffolding on which negotiations of value, fashion sense, courtship are all built. How can I go wrong if I, as the duly appointed resident smart person, talk to these folks by evoking the language, the symbols, and the metaphor of hip-hop? They'll think I'm jiggy. The dangers of moves like this are always the unintended and often fairly keen embarrassment that possibly lurks within them. You think you're cool, the audience thinks you're old. Whenever an old person assumes a familiarity with youth culture, he usually runs a risk that while he was not watching, the cutting edge of that culture has somehow passed them by. The cutting edge often being more fast, more fleet than my eyesight. Thus, my fixation on Jay-Z may be passé, yielding to a deeper interest on your part in Lil Wayne, The Game, Soulja Boy, Rhyme Fest. In fact, you may be thinking that dude is whack, booty, OTL, lame, or more charitably, you could be musing, wow, now the crusty dusties are just trying too hard. My first reaction would be maybe you're right. The downside of any fad is that it is destined to run its course. And the academic exploiting of hip-hop, while not universally a cynical enterprise, quite frequently feels like another instance of what Michelle Ndegeocello inevitably termed the "my masters in the slave house again" syndrome. That said, I'm willing to risk being dismissed as a greedy culture poaching opportunist And my defense would be an evocation of another, perhaps more obscure 1996 product by those iconoclastic music makers, De La Soul. Their release during that year did not sell as well as Reasonable Doubt. And it definitely did not yield a tempo or a phrasing that was as infectious as the song that lends its title to this talk, because everybody was walking around saying, you can't knock the hustle. But nobody was walking around singing the title of a De La Soul album from 1996. Despite this fact, De La Soul's 1996 album might capture most aptly my motivation, the Hubbard Group's motivation, for not just plucking Jay-Z's words, but in a grander sense for participating in this particular enterprise and thus helping to plan the 2009 Fall Retreat for Black Men. They said, via the moniker of their album that I am referencing, they said, stakes is high. Stakes is high.
The New Grinding, expanding your consciousness as your life's work. This panel is designed to explore why grinding and hustling for the black male collegian must be viewed as the process of feeding the mind. As our panelist, Demetrius Walker, co-founder of the clothing company Dangerous Negro, and education graduate student Ahmad Washington will attest. That process certainly entails a productive posture towards classroom instruction, yet it also requires the active pursuit of learning and edification outside of the classroom.
As he mentioned, I grew up in the Bronx, and can anybody guess what my favorite movie might be? Bronx Tale. There you go. All right, Bronx Tale. So Bronx Tale, if you watch the movie, the central message in the movie is that the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. And that's something that kind of resonated with me. You know, I remember after my first year there, I bought a 1994 GS300 Lexus. I know it sounds kind of old, you know, this was 2004, and I bought a 94, but I seen it in Dead Presidents, Jay-Z's first video. He had the GS300 Lexus, and it was new in the Jay-Z video, but I still wanted it in 2004. I said, I remember back then, I was like, I'm gonna own that car. And so I said, I found one online, I bought it, you know, put some 20s on it. And, you know, I thought corporate America was, I was like, this is great, this was the American dream. You know, I got my GS300. So ended up crashing it into a wall on the highway, you know, totaled it, and I was being cheap, so I only had liability insurance, you know, so the car was a waste, it was a wash, you know, I didn't get the right tires for it, but it was all right, you know, I was in corporate America, ended up going to CarMax the very next day with a broken hand, everything, with my girlfriend. It was a mistake. Never go car shopping with your girlfriend. And so ended up driving home with a brand new BMW. Right, which I'm still paying for. So anyway, you know, I didn't think corporate America was so bad. You know, yeah, I was working, you know, crazy hours, 7 to 7. You know, sometimes getting off at 9 o'clock. And you know, I said, well, I guess this is what life is about. You know, I know prior to that, I felt the commitment to the black community, but I really didn't have time to focus on that because I was so entrenched in corporate America and trying to make money. So you know, eventually, I guess when I retire, I have something to give back to my family, to, you know, my grandchildren, or, you know, whoever could benefit after my 40 years of service in corporate America. I started to realize, you know what, I'm working on a plantation. You know, I said, man, this is a plantation. Not only am I not able to fully utilize my natural God-given talents and skills, you know, these people don't view me as a person, they view me as a robot. And so at that moment, I realized there was something, I had to do something in order to be able to fully utilize my skills and my talents, and also to be able to give back to the black community. That's what I've gone to school for. You know, I spent a bunch of money going to Taft, very expensive institution. Vanderbilt University was not cheap, and here I was, I sold out, you know, for a Lexus that I crashed in a BMW. Be ambitious, you can't be discouraged as far as following what you believe is true, as far as understanding in the black community, you do have a commitment. The black scholar particularly has a commitment to uplifting the black community. What's involved in that is mentorship. You know, not only should you have a mentor or mentors, you're responsible to also mentor somebody else.